The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Earth Defense Force headquarters. Commander Alan Pierce stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the night sky with worried eyes. Reports had come in from the outer monitoring stations. Something was approaching Earth, something that didn't match any known human spacecraft. "Commander, you should see this," said Lieutenant Susan Brown, her voice shaking slightly as she handed him a tablet. "The object changed course. It's definitely not a comet or asteroid." Alan looked at the screen. The blinking dot was now moving, in a clear path toward Earth, slowing down in a way that natural space objects never did. "How long until it reaches our atmosphere?" "About 6 hours, sir." Alan nodded. "Call the United Nations Emergency Council and get me Dr. Walsh." The news spread quickly across the planet. An alien ship was approaching Earth. After centuries of searching the stars and wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. Some people celebrated in the streets. Others hid in bunkers. Most simply watched their screens, waiting. Dr. Heather Walsh arrived at headquarters within an hour, her curly hair messy from the helicopter ride. As Earth's leading expert on theoretical alien biology and communication, she had spent her career preparing for this moment, though she never truly believed it would happen during her lifetime. "What do we know?" she asked, walking briskly beside Alan toward the command center. "Not much. It's about the size of a small cruise ship. No weapons that we can detect, but their technology is clearly far beyond ours. They're slowing down, which suggests they plan to enter orbit or land." Heather nodded. "Have they tried to communicate?" "Nothing yet." As if on cue, every screen in the command center flickered. The regular displays disappeared, replaced by a symbol that looked like a spiral with strange markings around it. Then a voice came through the speakers, not in any human language, but in a series of clicks, whistles, and humming sounds. "That's them," Heather whispered, her eyes wide. "They're trying to talk to us." For the next hour, Heather and her team worked with the advanced computer systems to analyze the alien language patterns. The aliens sent more messages, each one different from the last, as if they were trying various approaches to make themselves understood. "I think they're testing us," Heather said finally. "They're using increasingly complex mathematical sequences in their communication. It's like they're trying to determine our intelligence level." Alan frowned. "Can we respond?" "We can try. I suggest we send back the next number in each sequence they've given us, followed by some basic information about Earth and humanity." The United Nations Emergency Council approved the plan. Heather's team sent a carefully crafted response, including simple diagrams of humans, Earth's position in the solar system, and mathematical confirmations that they understood the alien sequences. The response came quickly. This time the alien language was interspersed with English words, broken and out of order, but recognizable. Primitive. Beasts. Interesting. Unexpected. Tool users. The room fell silent. "Beasts?" Alan repeated. "Did they just call us beasts?" Heather studied the message. "They might not understand the negative meaning of that word in our language. Or," she hesitated, "they might be making a judgment about us." The next message was clearer. The aliens, who identified themselves as the Galaxian Imperium, had been studying Earth from afar for decades. They had classified humans as aggressive predator beasts with rudimentary tool use and primitive space exploration capabilities. They expressed surprise that humans could understand their mathematical communications. 3 days later, after more exchanges, the Galaxians agreed to a face-to-face meeting. They would send representatives to the International Space Station, which they described as a suitable container for interaction with potentially dangerous primitive species. "They really don't think much of us, do they?" Alan said as he prepared for the journey to the station. As commander of Earth's Defense Force, he had been chosen as one of 5 representatives to meet the aliens. "They come from a civilization that has likely explored hundreds of star systems," Heather replied. She would also be going to the meeting. "To them, we probably look like cave people who just discovered fire." The trip to the space station was tense. Nobody knew what to expect from the Galaxians. Would they look like the aliens from science fiction movies? Would they be peaceful despite their dismissive messages? When the Earth delegation arrived at the station, they were met by the station's commander, Nathan Ward. The Galaxian ship docked an hour ago, he told them quietly. There are 3 of them. They're not what I expected. The meeting room had been prepared with chairs on both sides of a long table. The Earth delegation took their places and waited. The door on the opposite side slid open. The Galaxians were tall, nearly 7 feet, with slender bodies covered in smooth, pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Their heads were larger than human heads, with no visible hair and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They wore what looked like thin silver suits with devices attached at various points. What surprised Alan most was that they wore what appeared to be face masks and gloves. The lead Galaxian spoke, its voice translated through a device on its chest. We have sanitized ourselves to prevent contamination during this interaction. Your species carries many bacteria and viruses that could be harmful. Ambassador Lisa Kelly from the United Nations stepped forward. Welcome to the International Space Station. We are honored to be the first humans to meet representatives from another world. The Galaxian's upper eyes narrowed. Your species has achieved basic space habitation. This is unexpected for your classification. We have studied 17 sentient species across this galactic sector. You are the first predator beasts to achieve this level of technology without guidance. Lisa's diplomatic smile faltered. I'm sorry, but we don't consider ourselves beasts. Humans have developed rich cultures, art, science, and philosophy. We've unified our planet despite our differences and reached for the stars. The 3 Galaxians looked at each other, making quick clicking sounds that their translation devices didn't convert. Interesting, the lead Galaxian said finally. You believe yourselves to be civilized, yet your planet's history is filled with constant warfare. You kill your own kind for territory and resources. You destroy your environment. These are beastie behaviors, not civilized ones. Dr. Walsh stepped forward. Every species must evolve and learn. We acknowledge our mistakes and try to do better. Isn't that the mark of intelligence and civilization? Again, the clicking communication between the aliens. The Galaxian Imperium has brought order to many worlds, the lead alien explained. Species like yours benefit from our guidance. Those who resist are replaced. Those who cooperate find a place in our system. The meaning was clear. This wasn't a friendly first contact. It was an assessment before conquest. Admiral Kate Summers, representing Earth's combined military forces, spoke next. We hope for peaceful relations and cultural exchange with the Galaxian Imperium. We have much to learn from each other, but make no mistake, if threatened, humans will defend our world. The lead Galaxian made a sound that might have been laughter. Defense requires capability. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships can barely leave your atmosphere. You are beasts with tools, nothing more. The meeting continued for another hour, with the Galaxians asking questions about Earth's resources, population, and government structures. They showed little interest in human art, music, or philosophy. When asked about their own world and culture, they provided only vague answers. Before departing, the lead Galaxian addressed the human delegation one final time. We will return to our ship and report to the Imperium. You will be classified and processed according to standard procedures for planets at your development stage. And what does that mean? Alan asked directly. It means your future will be decided by those wiser than beasts, the Galaxian replied. Prepare your leaders. We will return with the processing fleet in 7 of your days. As the aliens departed, silence fell over the human delegation. Through the station window, they watched the sleek Galaxian ship disconnect from the docking port and move away with impossible grace and speed. They're going to invade, aren't they? Lisa whispered. Alan nodded slowly. Yes. And they think it will be easy because they see us as animals. Then we'll have to show them just how dangerous animals can be when cornered, Kate said grimly. Let's get back to Earth. We have a planet to prepare. The 7 days passed quickly. Around the world, governments shared what little they knew about the Galaxians with their people. Some nations began evacuations to underground shelters. Others prepared their military forces, though everyone understood that Earth weapons would likely be useless against the alien technology. Commander Alan Pierce barely slept during those days. He worked with military leaders from around the world to create some kind of defense plan. In the brief moments of rest he allowed himself, the Galaxians' words echoed in his mind. Beasts with tools, nothing more. On the morning of the 7th day, Dr. Heather Walsh joined him on the roof of the Defense Force headquarters. The sky was clear and blue, showing no sign of the coming threat. "Do you think they'll really come today?" she asked quietly. Alan nodded. "They seem like the type who keep their word." "I've been studying the language patterns from our meeting," Heather said. "They don't just think we're primitive. They genuinely don't see us as fully sentient. In their minds, we're smart animals, not people." "That might work in our favor," Alan replied. "People underestimate animals all the time, and it usually ends badly for them." The first signs of the Galaxian return came at noon. Satellite systems detected multiple objects entering the solar system. Not one ship, but hundreds. By mid-afternoon, they had reached Earth orbit. Unlike the first ship, these were clearly designed for war. "They're positioning themselves over major cities and military bases," reported Lieutenant Susan Brown, pointing to the tracking screen. "Standard invasion formation, just like we would do." The first attack came without warning. A beam of blue light shot down from one of the ships, striking a military base in Nevada. When the light faded, nothing remained. Not the buildings, not the people, not even the ground where the base had stood. Only a perfectly smooth crater remained. Similar attacks hit targets around the world. Earth's military responded with everything they had: fighter jets, missiles, even nuclear weapons. None reached their targets. The Galaxian ships had some kind of energy shield that disintegrated anything that came near them. Major Frank Collins was the only survivor at the Nevada base. He had been in an underground storage bunker when the attack hit. The bunker collapsed, but somehow he survived. Digging his way out, he found nothing but that smooth, glassy crater where the base had been. With no communication devices working, Frank began walking. He didn't know where to go, only that staying near the attack site meant certain death if the aliens returned. For 2 days he walked through the desert, rationing his water, moving only at night when the alien ships were harder to see against the dark sky. On the 3rd day, he spotted a group of people camped in a small canyon. Approaching carefully, he recognized one of them, Olivia Martinez, a former Special Forces soldier he had trained with years ago. "Frank?" she said in disbelief when she saw him. "We thought everyone at the base was dead." "Everyone else is," he replied grimly. "What's happening out there? I've been cut off from all communication." Olivia's group consisted of 12 civilians and 3 other military personnel. They had a solar-powered radio that picked up emergency broadcasts. The news wasn't good. "The aliens have taken control of most major cities," Olivia explained. "They're rounding up humans and taking them to processing centers. Nobody knows what happens inside those places. The only good news is that they seem surprised by how much we're fighting back." "What do you mean?" "They expected us to surrender immediately. Instead, resistance groups are forming everywhere. We're hitting them with guerrilla tactics, quick strikes, then disappearing before they can respond." Frank looked at the small collection of weapons the group had gathered. Mostly handguns and hunting rifles, useless against the alien ships but perhaps effective against the Galaxians themselves if it ever came to face-to-face fighting. "They think we're animals," he said, remembering what he'd heard about the first contact meeting. "So let's show them how dangerous cornered animals can be." In the days that followed, Frank and Olivia's group joined with other survivors. They avoided main roads and cities, traveling through wilderness areas where the alien ships rarely patrolled. Along the way, they gathered weapons, food, and most importantly, information. They learned that the Galaxians had established a central command center in what used to be Washington, D.C. They learned that some humans were being taken to large facilities for what the aliens called processing. which seemed to involve testing and sorting people for different types of labor, and they learned that the aliens were having trouble controlling the human population. "They've conquered 17 other species," explained a woman who had escaped from a processing center, "but none of those species fought back like we do. The Galaxians don't understand why we keep resisting when defeat is so obvious." Meanwhile, in a hidden laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Heather Walsh worked with a team of scientists who had been evacuated there before the invasion. The facility had been built during the Cold War and was designed to withstand nuclear attacks. So far, the Galaxians hadn't discovered it. "Their biology is fascinating," Heather said during a meeting with the other scientists. She pointed to diagrams based on scans taken during the space station meeting. "They evolved on a world with few predators. Their sensory systems are incredibly advanced. They can see more colors than we can and hear frequencies we can't detect. But they have almost no natural pain response or fight-or-flight instinct." "What does that mean for us?" asked Dr. Neil Rogers, a biologist. "It means they don't understand fear the way we do. They don't know what it's like to be hunted. And that's a weakness we might be able to exploit." The scientists worked day and night, studying everything they knew about the Galaxians and searching for any potential weaknesses. They managed to capture the transmission frequencies the aliens used and began monitoring their communications. Most of what they heard was in the Galaxian language, but occasionally, the aliens would use their broken English when dealing with human prisoners. From these communications, Heather's team learned something important. "They're puzzled by us," she told Commander Alan Pierce over a secure line. "According to their science, beings at our technological level shouldn't be able to resist their control methods. They're starting to wonder if their classification of humans was incorrect." Alan had established a resistance headquarters in an abandoned mining facility in the Appalachian Mountains. From there, he coordinated attacks on Galaxian supply lines and communication centers. "Good," he replied. "Confusion leads to mistakes, and we need them to make mistakes." Meanwhile, in a Galaxian research center that had once been a university, in Oregon, Chief Scientist Krellmore was conducting tests on human subjects. The aliens had captured hundreds of people from nearby towns. Most were assigned to labor units, but some were kept for study. Subject 37 was particularly interesting to Krellmore. Before the invasion, he had been Paul Rodriguez, a high school science teacher. Now he was just a number in the Galaxian system. "Solve this," Krellmore instructed, displaying a complex mathematical problem on a screen. Paul studied it, then wrote the solution on the tablet they had given him. It was the 12th problem he had solved correctly today. Krellmore made a clicking sound that indicated confusion. According to Galaxian science, a species at humanity's development level shouldn't be able to solve such complex problems. Yet, this subject did so with ease. "Why do you fight when you cannot win?" Krellmore asked suddenly, switching to the simplified English they used with humans. Paul looked up, surprised by the question. "Because we're human, and humans don't surrender." "Illogical. Surrender preserves life." "Some things are more important than life," Paul replied, "like freedom, dignity, hope." The Galaxian scientist recorded these responses and added them to the growing file of anomalous behaviors observed in humans. Later that day, he sent a report to the Imperial Command. The humans exhibit behaviors inconsistent with their classification. They form complex social bonds and demonstrate sacrifice, behaviors typically seen only in higher sentient forms. Recommendation: re-evaluation of species status. The response came swiftly. Irrelevant. Proceed with processing for labor assignment. But what the Galaxians failed to understand, what their science couldn't explain, was that humanity was changing. The pressure of invasion, the fight for survival, was awakening something within the human species, something that had been dormant for thousands of years, something the aliens, with all their advanced technology, could never have predicted. And in resistance camps across the planet, stories began to spread of humans doing impossible things, feats of strength and endurance that defied explanation. The beast was awakening, and soon the Galaxians would discover that their classification of humanity was more wrong than they could possibly imagine. 6 months after the Galaxian invasion began, Earth was a changed planet. Major cities had been transformed into processing centers where thousands of humans worked as forced labor. The countryside was dotted with resistance camps where those who escaped the aliens' control fought to survive. In the Appalachian Resistance Camp, strange stories circulated among the fighters. Amy Sinclair, a former nurse, could somehow sense when Galaxian patrol ships were coming, often before they appeared on radar. At first, people thought she was just lucky or had good hearing. But after she warned the camp 17 times in a row, saving hundreds of lives, people began to wonder. "I can't explain it," Amy told Olivia Martinez as they sat around a small fire. "I just get this feeling like a pressure in my head. And I know they're coming." Olivia had seen other odd things in recent weeks. Sam Wilson, one of their scouts, had outrun a Galaxian patrol on foot, moving faster than any human should be able to run. Jack Rivera had lifted a fallen tree that would normally require 4 men to move. "Something's happening to us," Olivia said quietly to Frank Collins. "People are doing things that should be impossible." "Maybe it's always been possible," Frank replied. "Maybe we just never needed to do these things until now." In the hidden laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Heather Walsh was reaching similar conclusions. Reports from resistance groups around the world described humans developing enhanced abilities, increased strength, sharpened senses, accelerated healing, and in some cases powers that seemed almost supernatural. It could be a response to extreme stress, suggested Dr. Neil Rogers during a late-night meeting. "Animals sometimes show remarkable adaptations when their survival is threatened." Heather shook her head. "Not like this, not this quickly. And not abilities like being able to sense things from miles away or heal injuries in hours instead of weeks." She pointed to the map on the wall, where they had been marking locations of reported enhanced humans. "Whatever's happening, it's spreading." Commander Alan Pierce had noticed the changes in himself as well. His mind felt sharper, clearer. He could go days without sleep and still think clearly, and sometimes when he touched the communication equipment, he seemed to understand the machine without needing to use the controls, as if he could speak to it directly with his thoughts. He hadn't told anyone about this last ability. It seemed too strange, too impossible. But after receiving Dr. Walsh's latest report about enhanced humans across the globe, he decided to experiment. Alone in his quarters, Alan placed his hands on the complex radio system they used to communicate with other resistance groups. He closed his eyes and focused on the machine, imagining its circuits and signals. Something shifted in his mind, and suddenly he could sense the radio waves around him, countless signals filling the air, including the secure Galaxian communication, channels they had never been able to access before. Alan's heart raced as he realized what this meant. He focused on one of the Galaxian signals and somehow understood it perfectly, even though it wasn't in English. "The Emperor demands answers," the transmission said. "Why has the Earth occupation taken 6 months when the projection was 6 days?" Another voice responded. "The humans are evolving. Our classification system failed to account for their adaptability. Some specimens are now displaying abilities outside normal biological parameters." Alan listened for hours, absorbing information about Galaxian plans and their growing concern about human resistance. When he finally pulled his hands away from the radio, he knew they had a chance. A small one, but real. Meanwhile, in a Galaxian detention facility, outside what had once been Chicago, something unprecedented was happening. The facility was surrounded by energy barriers that would disintegrate any organic matter that touched them. These barriers had proven effective on all 17 species the Galaxians had conquered before. Guard Commander Bexnall was monitoring the security feeds when an alarm sounded. The screen showed a human female approaching the barrier, not running into it by accident, but walking deliberately toward it. "Stop," Bexnall ordered through the facility's speaker system. "Return to your work area immediately." The human, prisoner Laura Chen, according to her identification code, didn't stop. She reached the barrier and then did something impossible. She walked through it. The energy field sparked and flared around her body, but she emerged on the other side unharmed. Security footage showed her eyes glowing with an inner light moments before she passed through the barrier. Bexnall sent guards to recapture her, but by the time they reached the area, she was gone. "The beasts are changing," Bexnall reported to Imperial Command. "They're becoming something else." The Galaxian Emperor, for the first time in the species' 10,000-year history, felt fear. Their entire understanding of life in the galaxy was based on predictable patterns of evolution and behavior. What was happening on Earth followed no known biological principle. "Prepare the planet-killer weapon," the Emperor ordered. "Earth must be eliminated before this contagion spreads." The planet-killer was the Galaxians' ultimate weapon, a device designed to shatter a planet's core, destroying it completely. It had never been used before, only kept as a final option for worlds too dangerous to be allowed to exist. As Galaxian engineers prepared the weapon for deployment, humans around the world felt a strange connection growing between them. Those with enhanced abilities sensed each other across vast distances. Dreams were shared, thoughts connected. A network of human consciousness began to form, linking minds that had once been separate. In Dr. Walsh's laboratory, the scientists detected a massive energy surge throughout Earth's magnetic field. "It's as if the planet itself is responding to the danger," she told Commander Pierce during their secure communication. "And human brainwave patterns are changing to match this new energy." Through his newly discovered ability to intercept Galaxian communications, Alan learned about the planet-killer weapon. The aliens planned to place it deep in Earth's crust where it would burrow to the core before detonating. "We have 3 days before they deploy it," he told his officers. "We need to find a way to stop it." But how could humans, even with their emerging abilities, stop a weapon capable of destroying an entire planet? The answer came from an unexpected source. Paul Rodriguez, the science teacher who had been Subject 37 in the Galaxian Research Facility, had escaped during a resistance raid. He brought with him knowledge of Galaxian technology and a theory about what was happening to humanity. "It's not new," he explained to a group of resistance leaders. "These abilities have always been part of us, dormant in our DNA. Ancient myths about gods and heroes with supernatural powers. Those weren't just stories. They were memories of what humans once were, what we could become under the right circumstances." "And the invasion triggered these dormant abilities?" Dr. Walsh asked. Paul nodded. The combination of extreme threat, the Galaxians' unique radiation signature, and something in Earth's own magnetic field, together they activated what was sleeping in our genes. The night before the planet killer was set to deploy, 50 enhanced humans from around the world gathered at a location directly above where the weapon would be placed. Each had demonstrated powerful abilities. Some could move objects with their minds. Others could generate heat or electricity. Still others could heal injuries or communicate without speaking. Led by Alan Pierce, whose ability to connect with technology had grown stronger every day, they formed a circle. Using the mental connection that had developed among enhanced humans, they linked their minds into a single consciousness greater than any individual. "We may not survive this," Alan told them. "But Earth will." When the Galaxian ship arrived and began drilling into the crust to place the planet killer, the linked humans felt it immediately. As one mind, they reached out with their combined power, surrounding the weapon with a field of pure mental energy. The planet killer activated, as planned. But instead of destroying Earth's core, its enormous energy was contained and redirected by the human psychic link. The resulting explosion was visible from space, a column of light shooting up through the atmosphere, but Earth remained intact. Induine. That moment, every Galaxian on and around the planet received the same message, broadcast directly into their minds using their own communication network. It came from Alan Pierce, his consciousness temporarily expanded by the combined power of 50 enhanced humans. "We never wanted war. Even now we offer peace. But we are not beasts to be conquered. We are humanity. And we have awakened." The Galaxian fleet received new orders from their Emperor: full retreat. For the first time in their expansionist history, they were abandoning a conquest. Ships began to pull away from Earth orbit, preparing to jump to faster-than-light travel. But the humans, now awakened to their new abilities, weren't ready to just let them leave. Using his connection to technology, Commander Alan Pierce detected the retreat orders and called an emergency meeting of resistance leaders. "They're running," he told the gathered men and women. "But they'll be back with a larger force once they figure out how to counter our abilities." Olivia Martinez, whose own powers had manifested as telekinesis, the ability to move objects with her mind, nodded in agreement. "We need to take the fight to them." "How?" Frank Collins asked. "We don't have spaceships that can chase them," Alan smiled. "Actually, we do." He explained his plan. A small team of enhanced humans would capture one of the retreating Galaxian ships. With Alan's ability to communicate with machines, they could learn to pilot it. Then they would follow the Galaxian fleet back to their command center. The mission was dangerous, but 20 volunteers stepped forward immediately. Among them were Olivia, Frank, Amy Sinclair, and Paul Rodriguez. Each had developed unique abilities that might prove useful. Using Olivia's telekinesis to propel them through space and Amy's sensing ability to locate the perfect target, the team approached a mid-sized Galaxian vessel. The aliens had no reason to expect an attack during their retreat, especially not one coming from the vacuum of space itself. Alan touched the outer hull of the ship and connected with its systems. Within minutes, he had opened an airlock. The team slipped inside, wearing makeshift spacesuits cobbled together from Galaxian technology salvaged during the occupation. The aliens inside were caught completely by surprise. Most surrendered immediately when they saw humans walking through the corridors of their ship, displaying powers that their science said were impossible. Those who resisted were quickly subdued by Olivia's telekinesis and Frank's enhanced strength. "We don't want to hurt you," Paul told the captured Galaxians using their own language, which he had learned during his time as a research subject. "We want information." Connected directly to the ship's computer systems, Alan discovered something shocking. Charts and data about 17 other worlds under Galaxian control. "They've enslaved entire civilizations," he told the others, displaying the information on the ship's main screen. "Species who might have become our allies are working as slaves across the galaxy." The decision was unanimous among the human team. They would not only defend Earth but would work to liberate the oppressed species. Using his technopathic abilities, Alan learned to pilot the Galaxian ship within hours. The team followed the retreating fleet at a safe distance, tracking them through faster-than-light jumps across the galaxy. The journey took weeks, during which the humans continued to develop their abilities further. Through their mental connection, they shared knowledge with the resistance back on Earth. Dr. Heather Walsh used this connection to continue her research. "These abilities seem to grow stronger with use," she reported to Alan. "And children born after the invasion are developing them naturally, without the trauma that triggered the first generation's awakening." Finally, the Galaxian fleet arrived at their destination, a massive space station orbiting a blue-green planet. This was the center of their empire, where the Emperor and ruling council lived. "We can't fight an entire empire," Frank said as they observed the station from a distance. "There are thousands of ships there. We don't need to fight them all," Alan replied. "Just change their minds." The plan they developed was bold. Using the captured ship, they would approach the station, as if they were part of the returning fleet. Once inside, they would make their way to the communication center and broadcast a message to all Galaxian-controlled worlds. The first part of the plan worked perfectly. Their ship was allowed to dock at the station without question. The team moved through the corridors, with Amy sensing the locations of nearby Galaxians, and Olivia using her telekinesis to create distractions when needed. When they reached the central communication hub, however, they found it heavily guarded. A direct approach would trigger alarms throughout the station. "I have another idea," Paul said. "If their empire is based on the idea that other species are inferior, let's show them how wrong they are." Instead of attacking, Paul walked openly toward the guards. Speaking in perfect Galaxian, he requested an audience with the Emperor. "I bring a message from Earth," he said calmly. "A message your Emperor needs to hear." The guards were so surprised by a beast speaking their language, and showing no fear that they escorted him to their superiors. Within hours, word reached the Emperor himself, who was curious enough to grant an audience. The human team was brought to the Imperial Chamber, a vast room with walls that displayed views of the galaxy. The Galaxian Emperor sat on a raised platform, surrounded by advisors and guards. "So," the Emperor said, his voice translated by devices around the room. "The beasts of Earth can speak. Tell me your message before I have you processed for study." Alan stepped forward. "We are not beasts. We never were. Your classification system failed to recognize what humanity truly is." "And what is that?" the Emperor asked with what seemed like genuine curiosity. "Potential," Alan replied. "Humanity has always had the potential for what you now see. Our myths and legends told of these abilities, but we forgot them as we built our civilization. Your invasion awakened what was dormant in us." As he spoke, Alan was connecting mentally with the station's systems. Through them, he accessed the communication network that linked all Galaxian-controlled worlds. "You call yourselves an advanced civilization," Olivia added. "But true advancement isn't about technology or conquest. It's about understanding, cooperation, and freedom." The Emperor made a sound that might have been laughter. "Fine words from a species that was killing itself before we arrived. Your history is full of war and destruction." "We've made mistakes," Paul acknowledged. "But we learn from them. Can you say the same? For 10,000 years you've conquered and enslaved. Have you ever questioned whether there might be a better way?" While they kept the Emperor distracted, Alan completed his connection to the communication network. Through it, he sent a message to every Galaxian ship and colony. Images and sensations from Earth, human art, music, compassion, courage, and the new abilities that had awakened. He showed the 17 enslaved species and offered them not conquest, but alliance. At the same time, the linked consciousness of enhanced humans back on Earth amplified the signal, adding their combined mental energy to the broadcast. The message reached not just communication devices but touched the minds of all who received it. Throughout the Empire, the enslaved species saw the message. Some began to resist their Galaxian masters. Others simply stopped working, standing, still and silent as the message of hope spread. In the Imperial Chamber, the Emperor received the full broadcast directly in his mind. For the first time, he experienced emotions he had never known: empathy, regret, wonder. "What have you done?" he whispered. "We've shown you the truth," Alan said. "Your empire was built on a lie, the lie that other species are lesser beings. Now everyone knows the truth." In the weeks that followed, the Galaxian Empire collapsed. Without the willing or forced labor of the species they had conquered, their systems could not function. Some Galaxians fought to maintain control, but most began negotiations with the species they had once ruled. The treaty signed 3 months later dissolved the Empire and established the Interstellar Cooperative, with Earth serving not as its ruler but as its protector. Humans with their newly awakened abilities became known across the galaxy not as beasts, but as guardians of a fragile peace. On Earth, schools taught not just reading and mathematics, but telepathy and energy manipulation. Alongside lessons on responsibility and compassion, children born after the invasion developed abilities naturally, creating a new generation unlike any before. And in distant galaxies, new species hearing tales of Earth spoke in whispers about the beings who had evolved from beasts to gods in a single generation, not to rule but to protect. Galaxian scientists spent years trying to understand what had happened. Their most advanced research eventually concluded that humanity had always carried the potential for these abilities, a potential shared by many species but rarely awakened. The pressure of invasion, combined with Earth's unique energy fields, had simply accelerated what might have taken thousands of years of natural evolution. Commander Alan Pierce, now an ambassador to the Interstellar Cooperative, often reflected on the Galaxians' first words to humanity. They had called humans beasts, never imagining that within those beasts lay the divine spark that would transform not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. We were never beasts, he would say, when telling the story to new allies. But we needed to be treated as beasts to discover we could be gods.